At 85, Ali MacGraw reveals the horrors of being married to Steve McQueen. She is 85 years old. She has lived through Hollywood's golden era, through heartbreak, through silence, and through decades of carrying a story that the world deserved to hear long before now. Her name is Ali MacGraw. And the horror she is finally revealing, the horror of being married to one of the most celebrated men who ever walked through Hollywood, is something that will stay with you long after this video ends. Because Ali MacGraw is not speaking in anger. She is not speaking for attention. She is speaking because at 85 years old, she has finally decided that her truth matters more than her silence. And the horrors she experienced being married to Steve McQueen, the jealousy, the control, the betrayal, the loneliness, the slow destruction of everything she had built for herself, deserved to be heard in full. So today we are going to hear them, every single one. Before we get into the horrors that Ali MacGraw has revealed about being married to Steve McQueen, we need to understand exactly who Ali MacGraw was before Steve McQueen entered her life. Because one of the most important and most heartbreaking parts of this story is understanding what she had and what being married to Steve McQueen took away from her. Ali MacGraw was born on April 1st, 1939 in Pound Ridge, New York. She grew up in a quiet, artistic home where both her parents were painters, and creativity was something she absorbed naturally from her earliest years. She was never the loudest person in the room, never the most demanding, but she had something that very few people possess, a quiet, magnetic presence that drew people toward her without her ever having to try. She studied at Wellesley College and came out with a sharp, intelligent mind and a fierce sense of her own identity. She worked her way through the fashion world with patience and talent. And then Hollywood found her, and everything she had quietly been building suddenly exploded into something enormous. Her 1969 film, Goodbye, Columbus introduced her to the world as a serious and gifted actress. But it was Love Story in 1970 that made Ali MacGraw a genuine cultural phenomenon. She played Jennifer Cavallari with such raw and honest beauty that audiences around the world were completely broken open by her performance. Academy Award nomination, Golden Globe, magazine covers everywhere, her name on every pair of lips in Hollywood. She was not just famous. She was beloved. She was a woman at the absolute peak of her power, confident, independent, talented, and completely in control of her own story. And then Steve McQueen walked in, and the horrors began. The first horror that Ali MacGraw has revealed about being married to Steve McQueen was one that crept up on her so slowly and so quietly that by the time she fully understood what was happening, it had already done enormous damage. The horror of losing herself completely. Steve McQueen was born in 1930 in Indiana, and his childhood was one of abandonment, instability, and deep unhealed pain. His father left before he was a year old. His mother could not cope and sent him away to live with relatives. He passed through reform schools and rough streets and collected wounds along the way that he never once properly dealt with. Instead, he buried them. And those buried wounds turned into something dangerous, a need to control, a volcanic jealousy, and an inability to let the people he loved exist freely outside of his grip. The world never saw any of this. The world saw the king of cool, the effortlessly charming, impossibly handsome motorcycle-riding, race-car driving legend whose films made audiences feel genuinely alive. Bullet, The Great Escape, Papillon. Steve McQueen was not just a movie star. He was a mythology, and Ali MacGraw fell in love not just with the man, but with the full force of everything he represented. They met on the set of The Getaway in 1972. The chemistry between them was electric and immediate, and completely impossible to ignore. They married in 1973, and the whole world celebrated. But Ali MacGraw has revealed that the horrors of being married to Steve McQueen began presenting themselves far earlier than anyone outside that marriage ever knew. Small things at first, the way his eyes would follow her across a room at a party, the way a simple conversation with another man on a film set could darken his mood for an entire day, the way he needed to know exactly where she was and exactly who she was with at every single moment. She noticed these things. She felt them pressing against her. But she was deeply in love, and she told herself what people in love always tell themselves, that it would settle down, that it was just the intensity of new feelings, that the man she had fallen for was in there underneath all of it, and just needed time and patience and love to come fully forward. She gave him all three, and the horrors only deepened. The second horror that Ali MacGraw has revealed about being married to Steve McQueen is perhaps the one that cost her the most in real and lasting terms. The horror of watching her career be slowly and deliberately destroyed. Steve McQueen did not want his wife working, not because their household needed her at home, not because he had any practical reason that made sense, but because a wife who was working was a wife who was on film sets he was not on, a wife who was surrounded by directors and leading men and creative people he could not monitor, a wife who was building her own independent identity and her own financial power at a time when he needed her to need him completely. And so the career that Ali MacGraw had spent years building, the career that love story had launched into the stratosphere, began to quietly and systematically disappear. Ali MacGraw has spoken about this horror with a sadness that is deeply painful to hear, because she was not a passive victim in this part of the story, and she knows it. She made choices. She turned things down. She told herself that her marriage mattered more than her ambitions, and that the sacrifices she was making were temporary, and that eventually things would balance out. Scripts arrived and were set aside. Calls from directors went unreturned. Roles that would have been extraordinary for her. Roles that could have cemented her status as one of the great actresses of her generation simply slipped away into the silence of a marriage that was consuming everything around it. The woman who had received an Academy Award nomination just a few years earlier was now sitting at home waiting for a husband who treated her devotion as something he was owed rather than something he should treasure. The horror of that, of feeling your talent and your potential slowly draining away while you pour everything you have into someone who does not even fully see you, is something Ali MacGraw has described as one of the most quietly devastating experiences of her entire life. The third horror that Ali MacGraw has revealed about being married to Steve McQueen is the one that perhaps broke her heart most completely, the horror of the betrayal. Steve McQueen was unfaithful throughout their marriage, not quietly, not carefully, not with any real effort to protect his wife from the humiliation of knowing. He moved through their marriage as a man who believed his own desires were simply more important than his commitments. And for Ali MacGraw, a woman who had surrendered her career, her independence, and her own sense of self on the altar of this marriage, discovering the full extent of his infidelity was not just painful. It was the kind of deep, specific devastation that changes something permanent inside a person. Because the betrayal did not just tell her that her husband had been unfaithful. It told her something far more damaging than that. It told her that every sacrifice she had made had meant nothing. That the career she had given up, the roles she had walked away from, the years she had spent making herself smaller so that he could feel bigger, none of it had been enough. None of it had even registered. She had given Steve McQueen everything she had, and he had treated it as his right rather than his gift. Ali MacGraw has spoken about the loneliness of that period in her life with a quiet devastation that is genuinely moving. Sitting inside a marriage that was supposed to be the great love story of your life and feeling more invisible and more alone than you had ever felt before you met him. Loving someone with your whole heart and understanding slowly and painfully that the version of him you fell in love with and the man actually standing in front of you were two very different people. That particular horror in the horror of loving someone and losing yourself completely in the process is something Ali MacGraw lived with every single day of that marriage. She finally walked away in 1978, 4 years after the wedding that the whole world had celebrated. The horror did not end with the divorce, because the final horror that Ali MacGraw has revealed about being married to Steve McQueen is the one that followed her out of the marriage and took the longest to heal. The horror of rebuilding yourself from almost nothing. When Ali MacGraw left that marriage, she did not just leave a husband. She left behind the career she had once had, the confidence she had once felt, the sense of her own talent and her own worth that had carried her so naturally through her life before Steve McQueen had entered it. He had not taken these things from her in one dramatic moment. He had taken them slowly and quietly over 4 years, until one day she looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Rebuilding took years. Real, honest, difficult years of therapy and reflection and the hard, private work of learning to trust herself again. Learning to believe that her talent was still there even though it had been buried. Learning to separate the genuine love she had felt for this man from the damage that loving him had caused. Steve McQueen died of cancer in November 1980 at just 50 years old. And Ali MacGraw has spoken about the complicated grief of losing someone who was both the great passion of your life and the source of your deepest pain. That kind of grief sits with you in ways that ordinary grief does not. It asks questions that do not have clean answers. It took her a long time to make peace with all of it, but she did make peace with it. And that peace, hard-earned and deeply real, is visible in every word she speaks today. At 85, Ali MacGraw is revealing the horrors of being married to Steve McQueen, not because she is bitter and not because she wants to rewrite history. She is revealing them because they are true. Because they happened to her. Because she lived through every single one of them and came out the other side and built a life of genuine meaning and dignity and self-knowledge that she is rightly proud of. She is revealing them because somewhere right now a woman is living inside her own version of this story, giving too much, losing too much, shrinking herself to fit inside someone else's need for control, and needs to hear that it is possible to walk away, that it is possible to heal, that it is possible to find yourself again even after someone has done their very best to make you forget who you are. The horrors of being married to Steve McQueen could not finish Ali MacGraw. They tried, but they could not. And at 85, still standing, still speaking, still fully and completely herself. That is the most powerful thing she has ever revealed. That was the full story of Ali MacGraw at 85, revealing the horrors of being married to Steve McQueen. A story told with honesty, with dignity, and with the deep respect that Ali MacGraw deserves for finally sharing it. If this moved you today, please hit the like button right now and subscribe if you are not already part of this family. Drop a comment below and tell me, did this change the way you see their relationship? Did it change the way you see Ali MacGraw? I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you in the next one.